Welcome to the African Climate Alliance podcast. In today's dialogue, we discuss the profound impacts of climate change on human rights, with a focus on a compelling case study, the East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline, also known as EACOP. This is a dialogue that confronts the harsh realities of how our environment and human rights are intertwined. We will explore how communities are displaced, wildlife is threatened, and our climate suffers as a result of activities like the EACOP. To shed light on this critical issue, we have a panel consisting of the #StopEACOP campaigners, human rights defenders, and passionate climate justice activists. Leading this important conversation are our facilitators, Michelle Maka and Koli Fuyani. Let's dive right in.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our dialogue on climate change and human rights and using the EACOP as a case study. Very, very excited for today because on Monday, we really, started the dialogue and just by sharing, what this means for us, how do we feel about this project and how will it impact our different communities. So before we start, we have three incredible guests for today who will be sharing with us, from the science perspective to the law and also from the grassroots, like looking at the children's rights. So I'm very excited to welcome Baraka Lenga, Kayinga Muddu Yisito, and Clay. But a very, very big welcome to all three of you. And thank you again so much for honoring the investigation. We cannot wait to dive deep. But before I actually introduce our speakers, I just want to tell you a little bit of EACOP in case you were not present on our workshop on Monday. So in 2006, commercial quantities of oil were confirmed to exist in the Lake Albert Basin in Uganda. The oil companies in Uganda, CNOOC Ltd, Total Energies, and Towell PLC completed the exploration phase. And then in November 2020, Total Energies finalized the acquisition of Fellow's entire interest in Uganda's Lake Albert development project, including the East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline in 2020. So the Total Energy is now a major shareholder in the project, and CNOOC are now headed into development phase, which will consequently lead to the production of Uganda's oil resources. I'm sure we've seen somewhere on the news or on social media, people talking about EACOP, and it is something that is of a big concern, hence we are having these dialogues today to really find out to really take it back to the basic and find out what is EACOP, what is the potential of it, also playing devil's advocate, but also looking at if it is being developed, how will it impact, our human rights? How will it impact our communities, looking at the land, looking at the villages, looking at children's rights. And so with that, I'm now going to present our speakers. So I'll start with Baraka and I'll read Baraka's bio as an introduction. Welcome. Yeah, so Baraka Lenga is a young climate change scientist, livelihood expert, and a committed climate activist based in Tanzania. So he's currently working on a representative of GreenFaith International Tanzania chapter. Baraka is also a striker with Fridays For Future Tanzania, which involve asking business leaders and politicians to act urgently against climate change. Baraka is currently running a campaign against East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline, known as EACOP, and all fossil fuel investment all over the world. So I'm also going to read the other two bios, so that when we start talking, we then are not going back to the bios. So now I'm gonna, introduce Kayinga Muddu Yisito. So Kayinga is a human rights defender addressing the needs of the vulnerable children and marginalized groups for healthy and self-reliant communities in Uganda. Kayinga is currently the network coordinator at the Community Transformation Foundation Network. Very big welcome to Kayinga. And then our last guest will be Clay. And Clay is a lawyer, environmentalist, and a natural resource enthusiast based in Tanzania. Clay is currently a project coordinator at Lawyers Environmental Action Team, now as LEAT, in Tanzania, as well as a member of Consultative Board of Friends of Earth Africa. So very thank you to Clay, Kayinga, and Baraka. So now we're gonna hand over to Baraka. So Baraka, you've been doing a lot of studies, on EACOP and campaigning, and you've been running campaigns. And so can you just share with us like some of your findings, from the scientific perspective? Because I'm sure like while you were running campaigns and doing all of this research, there were very insightful findings, maybe that might be helpful with us really understanding what is exactly is happening with this EACOP project. So over to you, Baraka.
Amazing, Sol, thank you. I'm not going to share my video because I'm just using my phone, and it is it is about to die. So I'm pretty sure if I be sharing my video, it will go off soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So about EACOP, this is a crude oil. This is a crude oil pipeline that involves the transportation of. This is the East Africa crude oil pipeline that involves the transportation of crude oil from Hoima around Lake Albert in Uganda to the port of Tanzania, that is the region known as Tanga. The pipeline will cover about 1,445 kilometers along the way from Hoima, Uganda to Tanga, that is Tanzania. So from the scientific perspectives, as it has been stated by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the International Energy Agency, that in order to meet the goals set in the Paris Agreement to achieve the temperature that is 1.5 degrees Celsius, that is 2, or if we are able to, maybe we can maintain to 1.5, we need no new fossil fuel. This is due to the fact that fossil fuel leads to the emission of greenhouse gases, which affects climate system and ultimately cause extreme weather events and the climate crisis. And from scientific perspective, they say that this East Africa crude oil pipeline will be emitting 34 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. That is more than 2 times than what Uganda and Tanzania is emitting currently, because Tanzania emits 12 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year and Uganda emits just 5. So together, Tanzania and Uganda emits 17. So with this EACOP, Tanzania and Uganda is going to emit 34 million tons of carbon dioxide. And this is going to amplify climate crisis. As far as it concerns, most of our people in the community depends on activities which are climate sensitive for their survival. These are agriculture, tourism, fishing, to mention few. So, and with the ongoing climate crisis, we all know that our people are more vulnerable. Climate change is forcing our people to become poorer and less resilient. So if we are going to treat this project on, So we must be assured that our people are going to become more vulnerable, more poor, and less resilient as far as their activities, which they depend for their survival, are climate sensitive. Also, this project is going to cause some social justice impacts and human rights impacts. For example, as far as the project is ongoing, our people have been displaced from their lands. That is the land that they used to grow crops for their survival. That is the land they used to stay. And from 2018, this is 2022. In Tanzania, these people have never been compensated. So you can imagine, they have never been compensated and they have stopped to continue using that land. So you can imagine how their life is, because the land in Africa is a crucial resource, because we depends on the activity that depends on land. So you can see. Also, some people used to bury their loved ones there after they pass away, and EACOP team forced them to move those graves without considering their culture. So you can see EACOP is violating our tradition, our customs, our culture. So far as I've been on the ground, that is what I've seen. Maybe we'll be hearing other from my colleagues. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you, Clay. I mean, you've really mentioned such key points, especially the one around culture, okay? Because it's something that often is not being highlighted. As you said, like that is ancestral land where people have been buried, and there are cultures and rituals, that are performed on that land. So then what happens then if that is being used, for this project? But also one thing you've also mentioned that I was interested in is around compensation. I mean, this project is actually being sold as unlocking East Africa's potential, and it's been sold as an economic upliftment. So where now we are seeing like families actually being, I don't know if this is true, and this is what I want to ask you, because on the news, we've seen that some of the families and people in those villages that the pipe will be cutting through are being compensated. So is that something that is happening, or is it just a greenwash thing, or that is just being painted on social media?
Oh, do I need to answer this question now?
Yeah, so it's around compensation, because you said that there was a natural disaster in Uganda and Tanzania where people were being displaced, and they still, even to this day, they're not being compensated for their loss and damage. And with EACOP, so EACOP has been sold as unlocking Africa's potential. And on news and on social media, we've seen families actually being compensated for their land, and actually them saying that money will aid them actually in living a better life. Like now they'll be able to buy land somewhere else. And someone even said that they would now look into starting a business, So the question is that true for somebody that has been campaigning and doing research on the ground? Is that exactly what is happening, or is that just some greenwash,
Oh, amazing, Soul. Thanks for a good question. As I've said before, that assessment for the case of Tanzania, because I'm from Tanzania and I'm not in position to say something about Uganda. In Tanzania, 95% of the people who are going to lost their land as a result of East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline have never been compensated. And the assessment for land valuation was done in 2019, and this is 2022. So you can see, if the compensation was done in 2019, and this is 2022, they have never been compensated. And they are going to be compensated with the land value that was assessed in 2018. So can you imagine that their justice has been delayed? And we say that justice delayed is justice denied. So for the case of Tanzania, I'm pretty sure, and I'm responsible for this because I have been on the ground. I have met those persons affected by this project, and I have seen those documents from EACOP team. I'm pretty sure that those persons affected by this project have never been compensated, 95% of them. This is what I know for the case of Tanzania. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Baraka. Thank you for that clarification. And I want us to go back to science. Science is, it's a very critical in climate change because it gives us the facts, it gives us the stats, it gives us the data. But do you think these projects like EACOP or the government takes science seriously, especially from the Africans?
Okay, amazing. Paris Agreement is our roadmap in addressing climate change. And the Paris Agreement says that in 2030, we must maintain our global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And as far as 1.5 degrees Celsius is concerned, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the International Energy Agency say that in order to meet that goal, we need no new fossil fuel from now. So you can see, if our governments, I mean Tanzania and Uganda, and these French companies, Total and that one from China, Sinopec, are keeping on investing this new fossil fuels project, this means that our governments and those companies are not serious about climate action. That's what I can say. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. This is not just what's happening in Tanzania and Uganda. We are seeing it all around the world. In fact,
Yeah.
especially in African countries. But also I've always find it very fascinating, especially around the science, because even including the Paris Agreement, that is written from the global north perspective of what is happening there and the years that they have. But if you're looking at the global south, we are already experiencing the effects of climate change. Therefore, we don't have the 10 years, that is being said that, it's going to get worse. And so then it becomes very crucial that we really start to bring forward our own scientists, to change that narrative, to give us the data, that you guys research on the ground, so that then when we are fighting, EACOP, then we can present our own local science. But with that, I want to take it to you, Kayinga, because you advocate for children's rights. And so in your own perspective, so when you're looking at EACOP and you're looking at children's rights, where do you see the infringement? Do you think this is a good thing? Because as I said before, it's been said that it's going to bring a lot of jobs. It's going to change people's lives. And so from your own perspective, what do you think about this EACOP?
Thank you so much, Zoli, for the convening this engagement. Hi everyone, Kayinga. I'm called Kayinga Muddu Yisito from Uganda. It is true, much of the things don't differ from my colleague in Tanzania, being that this is a cross-border project. But from what you have asked me, there are a lot of, you see, the problem with this mega project is about miscommunication or disguising by companies, and the government wants to get what we call social license, but just deceiving people. For the last 4 years, when they come to our community, I work in the Greater Masaka sub-region, and I'm working in the 4 districts, which borders with Tanzania, where the pipeline is passing. And it's true, I've been advocating for the rights of the project-affected persons, only that my profile did not indicate that. And in fact, I'm among the 3 nominees for the 2022 European Union Human Rights Defenders Award, which is coming up on June 1st this year. So all those are just words. I can tell you that in the last 4 years, the project has only employed 1 person in our region. In the region, 1. But when they talk about jobs, they talk about thousands of jobs. They talk about tens of jobs. So those are just total lies. When all this work happens on the ground, the issues of like social, like local content, they don't exist. When you come back to what you have been talking about, the project is going to affect over close to 2,000 people in my region. On an average of 5 people, we are going into more than 10,000 people being directly affected in the region. That is too much. But all these people, over the 3 years, we were able to amplify our advocacy, where we said it has been a practice in Uganda. If a project delays to kickstart, people remain getting the same money they were valued to get. In Uganda, with our voices that even it took us to take the cases to court in East African Court of Justice, the case in France, through our partner organizations, Total and the government of Uganda were forced to have additional percentage of every year lasted. That is 15%. And it was very clear. It took 6 months to declare what they call cut-off date. So cut-off date was declared in 2019 in May. Today, we are talking about May 2022. These are 3 years. Some people have signed the contracts for the compensation, but the provision for the uplift is only talking about 2 years. Much as they are supposed to have 3 years. So if you see the impunity around it, these people, any gap they see that they can manipulate the population, they use it. And this is now our next target. We advocated for uplift, for compensating people for the period delayed every year 15%. Now you are compensating the people, you are cheating their 1 year uplift. And there are also other people whose property were not valued well. They have petitioned, they have raised their voices, but they have not been listened to. I give an example. There's a community in Chotera which contested the rates, which were totally different from other neighboring districts. They took the issues to the government valuer. But as of now, we were last got updates from Total that the chief government valuer accepted to give new rates. But now the contract that they are doing with the people on comparison, they are using the old rates of 2018 and the lower valuation that they used. So now you see all these, even before talking about what will be the impact of the project, but even before the project kickstarts, whatever we are mentioning now already impacts. Imagine if this has happened before the project takes forth. What do we expect when the project has come, when the route is guarded? Okay, talk about intimidation that we are facing because we are taken to be anti-EACOP project. Yet for us, we're saying the violations of human rights, the violations of environmental rights must be respected. If Uganda is signatory to COP agreement, Paris agreement, are you respecting it? Is the agreement, the Paris agreement talking is what we are seeing Uganda and Tanzania are doing? So we're just trying to challenge them, not to just think twice. But we are harassed. My office in February and the home where intruders, they came in, they broke my house. You see, so we are working in fears because they want us to speak what they want to speak. They want us to deceive with them. If they're deceiving people jobs, they want me to also deceive people Please, jobs are coming, but I'm not, as a realist, as a self-made person, I don't reason like that. When we talk about, there are so many children who have failed to go back to school. School dropout has increased in the area, in the area where Pamela is coming, because 3 years on the road, people don't have any money. Where they were expecting to get money, the land was leased. And all these problems, when they're happening, we have not seen any response from the companies, from the government, even during COVID time. People were almost trying even to eat nothing, but there was no rescue. Why are we standing up? When problems arise in our communities, people come back to us for humanitarian aid. But why should we stand up for people in need when the needs are caused by others? So all this shows you that now, I would give an example about the jobs. They are promising about like a service provision. Recently, a company from Dubai was announced to be the one catering company from Dubai. So one that won the tender for catering services. Now, these days, these people are moving in our region, is telling people, please organize groups, please apply and be able to supply. How can you tell people to apply when the strings attached to the guidelines for applications, they cannot be met by the locals? And you were thinking that you are really helping people to participate into the project. Why do you tell people that their jobs, their tenders, when the tenders are already given, awarded to others? So this tendency of Africans, of Ugandans, of local communities, just to be beggars, just to be followers, they are being put into the dim light that they are beneficiaries. But when the beneficiaries are not known, they are invisible, and they are the ones that are causing us troubles. So I have to tell you that even now, before the pipeline project kicks up, because now if it kicks out, we're going to see destruction of forests, we're going to see destruction of natural resources, people's water sources, and there is no communication to the poor communities. What is the way forward? What will be the response? Okay, but everything is left, to the companies, to the technocrats, just to think for the people. There has not been any attempt for people to be able to understand if our water source is going to be depleted. What is the solution? What are we going to do? All this had not happened, which we call constructive engagement. What we see is information sessions, but not constructive engagements with the affected communities, because people would be able to articulate their issues and concerns. There are a lot of promises, even to local governments, which shall make roads, which shall make schools, but without what we call community development agreements. When companies think that for them they are interested in using social corporate responsibility, which they can choose what to do, like you are seeing scholarships and OIMA, what, that does not really add a lot. But if they are clear social community development agreements, people can say, yes, you're taking away our water source. We must have an agreement with the company and the government. We are going to be replaced by this. But whatever now is happening, it is just verbal. It means that these people will end up not doing anything when we approach the construction phase. And you will not even be allowed to go and monitor what is taking place there. So because of time, I beg to stop there, but it's a...
Thank you so much, Kayinga. I could definitely feel your passion, feel your pain. And Kayinga mentioned really good points, especially around miscommunication and manipulation. Like villages falsely manipulated to sign these agreements, not even knowing what they're getting themselves into. And also just highlighting, like, currently, like, we are in the 11th hour to really save our planet. We are already seeing the effects of climate change. And now I'm wondering from the audience, like, because often like this becomes like a hard thing to believe, that climate change is happening. And I'm wondering, like, if there are real case studies of like things that you're seeing already happening in your communities, due to climate change. So now if you can use the chat to share, or if you can even unmute yourself, to share, like, what are you seeing the effects of climate change in your communities or in your town, in your cities, in your countries, and so that we can really start to reason and really see if this is really what we need or this is just going to put us on an even more dark hole.
Yes. My name is Kayinga Muddu. I'm from Tanzania, and I'm working with environmental-based organization. Chipping in on what you just said, having experienced the climate change impacts in our communities, so as to assess if we really need projects like EACOP. Quoting the president of Tanzania, who was recently responding to claims of increased commodity price, he said that among other things that have rose up commodity price in Tanzania is the effect of climate change. He said in the past 2 to 3 years, our country experienced the severe droughts and severe weather events, change in weather that denied farmers everywhere in the country to produce as they used to. So, decrease the production of commodities, decrease the production in agriculture. It made basic products to be scarce, and that alone has caused or played a significant role in rising commodity price. So you can see commodity prices have risen up, and people cannot afford to buy. So they start complaining to the government that why aren't you regulating prices? We cannot afford this kind of prices for maize, for rice. If our communities cannot afford to buy very basic products, cannot afford to buy food, to buy cooking oil, because farmers could not produce owing to climate reasons. That alone tells us that we have to act responsibly, and we have to stand up to protest to fossil fuel projects like EACOP, which could make us more vulnerable to climate change. We are already incapable of adapting effectively because of our lacking enough financial resources and technical resources. So rising of commodity price is something that is felt by everyone. Everyone will feel it. So to my opinion, that alone can be a good example that climate change can have effect in agricultural production, and at the end, you want to be able to afford basic needs like food. Yes.
Thank you so much, Clay. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us on this call can relate. I see also on the chat, Akila wrote that in Cape Town, there has been recurrent drought and water shortages. And then recently in KZN, which is KwaZulu-Natal, and the Eastern Cape, they have been experiencing torrential rain and flooding. And these natural disasters events are all linked to climate change. I mean, I'm sure like each and every day we are seeing really this increase, of natural disasters happening, but on a more frequent time. And I mean, if we just take the KZN example of the flooding, and because on the news, often you would see all the, the homes that are floating away and the destruction on the land. But often what you don't see is the impact that has on human beings. And I often say, because probably for a very long time, climate has always been framed as an ecological issue where it just affects the land. And we really then that with doing that done a lot of damage with really centering human beings. And probably that's why now we're struggling to really pinpoint and put forward that climate change does impact the human rights. Like if we heard from you, Clay. You were saying like people are struggling to buy basic food, that they need to survive. I mean, we've also heard from Kayinga saying like kids are not going to school, So and then and our constitution then says every human being has a right to this, has a right to education. We have a right to clean air. We have a right to food. And yet, again, same government, propose projects like EACOP. So Claire, you are a lawyer, and I'm very interested to hear, from the perspective of law, is this lawful? This project?
Yes.
Is this within law, what they're doing and what they're proposing?
If we come back to the laws, you cannot, our laws are not that straight to tell you such kind of projects are unlawful. For instance, Tanzania has the Environmental Management Act. So that act was meant to regulate all things relating to the environment. So if a project has detrimental environmental impacts like EACOP, you come to realize that Tanzania's Environmental Management Act has only one section that addresses climate change, Section 75 of the Act. And the only thing that section provides is the Minister for Environment will prepare guidelines or strategies for climate change mitigation and adaptation. So we have a lacuna or a legal gap, or we don't have policy guidance on how to handle climate change impacts. Our laws are less environmental sensitive, particularly to climate issues. And again, when such kind of projects are being undertaken, our laws do not give communities a right to protest or a right to question. Our laws do not empower communities to act, to ask for transparency or to hold the government officials into account. I can give you a very simple example. When environmental impact assessment for EACOP was conducted in Tanzania, and the report was shared in the EACOP website. They have their website, EACOP website. So you could visit the EACOP website and find the PDF of the environmental impact assessment for the EACOP project. But that assessment report is written in a very, very technical language that common Tanzanians cannot understand. So you cannot say that this is transparency, or people can read the report and see the environmental impacts and the mitigation measures. Nothing, very technical, they cannot understand it. Even us at our office, we had to hire experts from Environmental Law Alliance to help us to understand the content of the report. So our laws are less sensitive. We have a law that has only one section on climate. Maybe our countries need separate laws on climate. Maybe we need the Climate Change Act that would address and will mention institutions that will be responsible in assessing or giving a yes or a no to the projects. Tanzania has the National Environmental Management Council, NEMKI, which is mandated to manage the environment in the country. But NEMKI is very silent on the environmental impacts of EACOP to Tanzanians. They won't tell you a thing. So we have laws that do not capacitate the people or the institutions to take action to protect the environment against climate change impacts. Yes.
Thank you, Clay. I mean, that's very fascinating. Yeah, especially the technical language. I mean, it's something, again, that we are seeing. I mean, not just with EACOP, but even like with policies, we always argue that grassroots movements should engage, should be given seats at this table. But then often when they are given the seats, the language is not accessible. And it's also very fascinating about what you propose, because my next question was like, how do we change that? If the law doesn't allow communities to engage and to question. And I heard you like answering that by saying that we need separate law acts. And now with that, also the question is, how would that work? So wouldn't that then perpetuate this idea that government is above people? Because then if we have a law, shouldn't that law encompasses like everything? Shouldn't that law be inclusive, not just to the government or those that are well educated, but also to the local, like a local, like a person in the village? So with your proposal with separate law, how do you foresee that happening without then creating this friction of, people against government?
Okay, thank you. If I can recall Section 179 of our Environmental Management Act in Tanzania provide us whichever process, legislative process, governance process of making a new law that touches the environment, whichever law it may be. The environmental issues are so cross-cutting. So when an aspect of law would touch the environment, our laws provide us the people should be engaged from the grassroots. And Environmental Management Council or authorities should provide a room for people to send their opinion, whether orally or in written, and everyone should have that right. But the thing is, we normally send our opinions, we share our opinions in written way, orally. The government will just collect the opinions. Again, they will come up with a bill that has not incorporated your opinion without giving reasons as to why they did not incorporate your opinions. So maybe we need to make sure that we keep on advocating for inclusion, that let everyone be heard. And again, we should keep advocating on good governance. Among features of good governance is responsiveness. When we are giving our opinions on climate laws, when these laws are made, then our opinion should be heard. And in case the government does not take our opinion into account, they should give us the reasons why our opinions are not into account. So I think if we keep on pushing, maybe we may get somewhere good. We should keep doing this job tirelessly. That's all I can say.
As Clay said, the more we can campaign, the more we can use our voices, we have the power to stop EACOP. Yeah. So thank you all so much. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. Please do. I mean, if you are not following us on social media, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, and also follow Clay, follow Baraka, follow because we all need this information. We all need to support each other to really hold government accountable.
And there you have it. As we conclude yet another informative episode of the African Climate Alliance podcast, we want to express our heartfelt gratitude to our panelists for their invaluable contributions. Stay tuned for more educational dialogues and impactful case studies as we work together towards a future that is just, inclusive, and sustainable. In the meantime, you can stay connected with us by following us on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or learn more about our work and join our youth activist network on our website. All links will be left in the episode description. Catch you on the next episode.